I'll pass it on to Laura now to really introduce the next session that we have.
Thank you very much. The next activity that we have is a roundtable. It's something that actually Kenneth mentioned, and it's the importance of storage when we're talking about the energy transition. Also, something that Kenneth touched a little bit upon is the European Battery Alliance, which is definitely one of the key highlights of the key activities of EAT InnoEnergy. Within the European Battery Alliance, EAT InnoEnergy has managed to gather more than 700 companies inside one alliance. And actually having here one of the people that started the European Battery Alliance, Ilka von Dalvik. Very nice having you here. But then again, we really need to be mindful that this is a challenge. As mentioned before, climate does not wait. We need to act, and we need to act fast. In this case, we're going to have the next session where we're going to talk about the importance of storage in a fossil-free future. Now, I would like to welcome on stage the moderator, who is the team lead for smart grids and energy storage of EAT InnoEnergy, Johan Söderbom.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's extremely nice to be here and see all of you people being here and really eager to listen. And I'd like to point out what Kenneth said. It's time to pay attention now. So, another thing here, though, I would like to point out as well. Where did Laura go? She's there. I haven't just been a colleague with her. She's also, as I'm, a very avid climber. And that's also actually Kenneth. So this is sort of the team for CC Scandinavia. Climbing in all respects. But then we have our panels. I'd like to welcome you up on the stage, all of you. Please, go ahead. Have a seat. Leave this one for me. Thank you. So this is, again, pay attention. This is really experts, I can tell you that. So we will have hopefully, or I know that we'll have a very interesting discussion here on the topic of storage in a fossil-free energy system. But instead of me introducing all of these good people here, I would like to just say a few words and let you have a couple of minutes to position yourself in the storage space. So I'd like to start with Branden. So Branden, you're still a student, second year. So we get the fresh view of storage from you. And you are also have a very good background for this because you've been engaged in the egg hack, which is the industrial value chain for hydrogen that we have in InnoEnergy. So please expand a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you, Johan. So I'm very glad to be here to see all the year one students and also some two-year colleagues. As you mentioned, I did my internship last semester at EGAC, the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center. We work with different sectors trying to decarbonize hard-to-abate industries. And right now, I'm doing my thesis with another InnoEnergy startup called NitroCapt, based here in Sweden. And I'm working with the energy system. Right now, we want to decarbonize, we want to decentralize fertilizer production. And as we have hybrid energy production plants, the energy storage is the heart of that system.
Thank you very much. Next up is Carlos, currently working for Northvolt. Yeah. So one of the founders or the startups that founded the value chain for batteries. So please expand a little bit over yourself and Northvolt.
Can you hear me? No?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hi, my name is Carlos. I'm from Colombia. I'm an alumni from ENTEC. So I did my second year in Uppsala. And I'm currently working in Northvolt, in Västerås, as a production engineer in the prismatic cell assembly line. So I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, we're very glad to have you here. So. Thomas Johansson from Mind Storage.
Yeah. Thank you, Johan. It's great to be here. I have to say it's like being a rock star, having the spotlights in the eyes and not seeing you. But before myself, I really want to congratulate all of you who are here, because you're in the right field to be. I mean, I graduated from this school too long ago to say any years, but I can say that it's been so much better now today being in the energy industry. So you will have work to do for as long as you live, I can guarantee you. You already know that my background is from this school. I've been now for a long time in the energy industry. Only 2 years back, I founded the company together with 3 colleagues, and the CEO right now. InnoEnergy decided to invest in our company, so it's a privilege to be here as an industrial representative. I'll get into the details a little bit more later on, but I can say that I'm glad to hear that you understand the challenge with the climate. I hear that so much, so I'm happy to hear that, because in society there's still a lot of people who don't realize the challenge we have in front of us. And to make it work, there will be a need for storage. It's so clear. And we've decided to go for the best possible solution for that, we think, utilizing the most clean media there is, water, and the most reliable source there is, gravity. And then physics will make this for us. We just charge our batteries or energy storage with pumps, and then we release the energy by releasing the water through turbines. Simple is beautiful. That's a Japanese statement I learned a long time ago.
Okay, that's going to be exciting to hear more about. So, Kristina from Uppsala University. I was going to plan to introduce you as the Nestor of battery research. I think you said that at one point. So.
Well, then I'll tell you a story. I'm a professor in battery technology from Uppsala University, and if you look at the Nobel Prize laureate John Goodenough, who got his prize when he was 97, he invented the first material when he was 58 years old, the second one when he was 61, and the third one when he was 71. So I'm still young and promising.
Young and coming.
But I must tell you also that when you look at the European Battery Alliance, which has been presented here for you, they have made a strategic research, a strategic agenda for Europe. And I'm also leading Action 13B in that agenda, which is a long-term, large-scale research initiative comprising 24 countries in Europe, 102 organizations, trying to build long-term visions, which should be blue sky, a little bit risk-taking, but still realistic for industry in the long term and inspiring industry. So that is called Battery 2030 Plus. So I'm also writing the long-term research agendas for batteries in Europe. I think that is also fair.
Inspiring.
To say. So I'm looking in the crystal ball.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's very empty, I can tell you. We can
We
talk
have
more
another-
about that in the future.
Thank you. We have another one that's looking in the crystal ball, and it's Anouk from Aalto.
So hello everyone, I'm Annukka Sansalo-Arnio, I'm from Aalto University. I am now also heading the InnoEnergy Master's Program of Energy Storage in Aalto side, and so Aalto University is one of them. To be honest, this would have been the master's program I would have wanted to take when I was a master's student some time ago. But unfortunately, that just didn't exist at that time. But I really see that in the multidisciplinarity that we can see today, who also here in the hall, is very important. And storages will play a very significant part in the energy transition, and several different technologies, and therefore there's a lot of things to do. So I do research on many different energy storage systems, and this is a very interesting field to work on.
Thank you. And finally, but not least at all, we have from Schneider Electric, Sebastian Meyer. So,
yeah. Hello, everyone. So, can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my name is Sebastian. I'm from Schneider Electric. So I'm responsible for the power and grid business here in the Nordic. So for those of you who don't know Schneider Electric, so we are a big company doing electrification. So we are doing electrical equipment and systems and software. So we have a strong purpose in sustainability, I would say. And this is one of our core focus at Schneider. So, so I'm really happy to be here with you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was exactly as I expected, or what I told you to have keep 2 minutes. A bit nervous about the time here, but I think we can handle it. Let's start the discussion on the first topic here, that is sort of looking at storage from an overview perspective. And I think we all can agree that having 100% fossil-free energy system, that requires storage in some way. Looking at the Nordic countries, for example, we're pretty well off when it comes to storage with the hydropower we have up here. But for the rest of the world, actually, for many parts of the world, this is a big challenge. And what I would like to hear some views about here is storage, and what type of storage that we believe that will be necessary in order to pull this off. Is it short-term storage? Is it long-term storage? Is it behind the meter, or is it on the grid side? All of these aspects are very interesting. And as it is of now, it's not altogether clear how this is going to be handled. There is a notion of actually looking at overbuilding a renewable system with, say, 150, 200% or something like that, which is sort of taking the edge of the need of storage. But we will never get away from the situation that we will need storage. And there's been quite a lot of research that's been done on this during the years. And because of that, I would like to get some first comments on this from Anu.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. Very interesting question. What would be storage? What would be the need? So I think if we think about the quantity that we are at the moment utilizing fossil energy, the reality is that when we would shift away from there, there's going to be a huge need of something else. What storage is not what makes renewable energy into similar energy and fossil energy. And so we need, this is energy transition, so storage is playing one part, but sometimes they're saying that's a very significant thing, and it will have an impact, but the reality is that we need to also think about how do we balance this. In previous life, we produced energy when we needed it, so we had an energy need, and then we produced the energy. But now we are producing energy as much as we have built it, and then probably the consumption has to a little bit shift. But storages will be needed there in the middle, but then this is a question of how are we balancing this? And I see that we have a very different needs, storage needs, so we need different technologies to overcome those different storage needs. And then there is going to be a question of short-term storage. We also have a huge need for long-term storage, for instance, seasonal storing here in the Nordic countries, for instance, for heat. And then the final thing is, what is it that we store? Do we store electricity? Do we store heat? Do we store chemical energy? And then that depends a lot where we are working at. And this is why we need all you guys, because this is going to be a very significant thing. We need people to do this. We need a lot of, there's not going to be one solution that fits all. And therefore, we need a lot more educated people in order to kind of like handle this thing, and a much new options and alternatives as well.
Thank you. Kristina, can you comment on this as well? That
yes.
has been mainly focused on batteries. So.
I'm mainly focusing on batteries, but I need absolutely persons like Anuka here, because you have to sort of tune your battery to fit to the purpose of the application. And that's extremely important to know then. What are the needs, and how should this battery, how large should it be, how long should it live, what can you sort of afford, what kind of raw materials do you need? It's a whole value chain to think about. And I think when the discussion about batteries now is very much about the raw materials, and we have a war, what does that mean for the access to nickel and the price of lithium, and all these things that are really complex. So I agree with Anu. We need this kind of educated people, because there are so many opinions, and they are very seldom based on real facts. And the real facts is, of course, complex, because batteries have their value chain, and it's just one small piece in this whole system part. And now we see that the batteries are driven very much by the automotive industry, because it's the electrification of the transport sector that comes first, and is very strong at the moment. But that can also be a part of the full system. So that we will also see how they will adapt to use the vehicles with new business models to fit to the whole system. I know from discussions with Volvo Cars last week, where we signed a contract between my university and them, that they are looking at this of second-use storage and maybe not want to sell the cars to you as an owner, but keep the ownership within themselves, because that will mean that they can control the battery, the real access to the precious metals.
Okay.
Or control that. That's very interesting. It's a whole new shift in many ways.
There's no cars involved in that contract for the staff. No.
Not for the staff,
Will not do
but for the students.
Okay, you listen to that.
That's another master program. But maybe we could
Sebastian,
think about Entech.
maybe you can comment on this as well, and specifically if we pick up on what Anouk was saying regarding flexibility in the grid and such things.
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually an important point. So if you look at today the grid challenge we have in Europe and in US, they are a little bit different from country to country or continent to continent, but clearly storage is a key help to actually improve the resilience of the grid, right? So this is kind of a fundamental aspect. So we see a lot of projects we call it microgrid projects, right? So this is really something that the world is actually turning into. Just to give you some numbers, in US there will be 25 gigawatts of, you could say, storage projects coming up in the next 5 years. So there is a 25 billion investment in US planned on that. We're talking about front-of-the-meter projects in that case. And I think the US has been, at least in Schneider, up front in storage project as well in Australia. So they're having key issues on resiliency, right? So this is really what they are focusing on. And you have a lot of investment plan on that, and also government incentive on that. In Europe, maybe we have been focusing a lot on production of renewables for now. So we are increasing more and more gigawatts every year in renewables. Probably it's time now to actually look at how we can actually improve the grid and look at the storage solutions in Europe as well. So this is.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thomas, I know you. I mean, you've been in the startup scene for 3 years now.
Yeah.
But previous to that, you've been a hardcore power
engineer.
Yeah.
Exactly, and
so maybe you have some views on this as well.
yeah, it's definitely something. I mean, I agree basically with all of the colleagues on the panel. But what I would be happy with from this session would be if all of you realize there's not a question mark behind storage. There's no question mark behind storage. And if you are studying and looking into electrical systems and electrical power systems, there's so many people that take it for granted, but you can't. It's just a matter of that people, and I actually met with Johan when he was with Vattenfall, and people from those companies, before you were born, actually designed the electrical power systems in a ways that we forgot that they are complex and they are critical and that we need them. And they were based on something that some people call the Old Testament, because it was based on national energy companies who could decide everything from production almost to loads, but also to the grid. And that is not working. So there's like a New Testament needed now. And that means that we have to look at this from a completely different perspective. And we need to take seriously again about the grid challenges that will come. So if you're able to communicate this like message to everybody you know, and hopefully not only to engineers, but also to your friends and family, that it's not a question about energy storage needs. Because when we are moving into a system where everything that's based on fossil fuels today, transport and the industries, into electricity, it will have enormous demands for new electricity production. And that will come very much from renewables. Renewables is great because it doesn't produce fossil or CO2, but it has a disadvantage. It's not plannable. And it shouldn't be plannable, I think. I think we should maximize the output from everything that's renewable. But what happens in the grid? That means that there's a mismatch every instant. And that mismatch is going to create a disaster in the system unless we take care of it. And then storage is pretty simple. So to me, take out the question mark and make it a full stop and an exclamation.
Interesting. Doesn't sound at all like the times at Vattenfall, I can say.
But we have learned. I mean, that's what I want to hope, that these young students think that you can learn, even though you reached our age.
Absolutely, yeah. Branden, I'd like to shift a little bit and bring up a slightly different topic here, but I think it was Christina that brought it up, that we see that the lithium-ion battery value chain has been extremely accelerated by the automotive industry. That's where the real demand is. And this, the map that Kenneth was showing earlier with somewhere around 45 plus different projects that's ongoing right now just in Europe when it comes to building. That is, of course, creating an enormous industrialization of batteries, pushing the prices down enormously and actually smothering the area when it comes to discussion of storage. But there are other technologies. So, and I know that you've been working with hydrogen.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe you can put that into respect, so we lift our perspectives a little bit here. So.
Oh yes. So according to my background, I'm going to give you like a point of view from hydrogen. So what's the difference between hydrogen and batteries? It's like, depending on the application, with batteries we're going to have storage for minutes, 1 hour to 4 hours, 6 hours. But the advantage with hydrogen is that you can store energy up to 1 week, days, maybe months. So what's the highest benefit of hydrogen is a long-term storage. So right now we have everything. There's a lot of pitfalls, challenges with hydrogen. But right now we have the technology to store in vessels. We have a vast experience with the specifications, materials, and everything. We have the investment with the Green Deal. We have private capital, European funds. We have the electrolyzer. We have the fuel cell. We have everything. So what's missing? What's missing? Why we're not having more hydrogen storage projects? Is because of the price. In the following 8 or 10 years, we're going to experience and see an increase in the electrolyzer efficiency, in which we're going to have more of these technologies. By 2030, we're going to have a most efficient fuel cell also, but by 2040, for sure, the market share of storage is going to be, it's going to coexist, the batteries and also the hydrogen. And something really special is that we're going to, that type of technologies in which we're going to have non-hazardous materials, non-scarce materials, and recyclable materials. That's the point of view. So it's a matter of time to have hydrogen in the energy storage market.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess, I mean, it's... there's been projections on the industrialization of mostly of electrolyzers, where you would get comparative prices to natural gas within 2035 or something like that. That must be happening much earlier now, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I also want to highlight something regarding the hydrogen, is that you can have hydrogen and produce electricity, but hydrogen is also versatile. You can store hydrogen as ammonia. You can transform ammonia. You can have e-fuels, another type of carrier. So that's another advantage that we need to explode in future years.
Okay, thank you. Thomas, now you can expand a little bit more on the technology you're representing here. So.
Yeah, and I think before doing that, I think it's important to see there is not a competition between technologies, and I think that's so clear. I mean, we will need all of it, like I said before. It's not a matter of the question mark, and it's not a matter. It's just a matter of reducing the time.
But Thomas, where will your technology fit then? Because I mean, if it's not competing, it's a complement.
I mean, it's very flexible. So I even call it like a Swiss Army knife, because there's so many functionalities. And again, coming back, so what we're doing is we're utilizing conventional technology from hydropower and pumping stations. And like I said earlier, we basically use gravity. So we store by lifting the water to higher elevation and then getting it out. But since we have rotating machines that's been part of the power system from the beginning, we add things like inertia. We make sure that there's a short-circuit capacity in the network. I'm talking to engineers. I really hope that you like these things, because those are critical in a grid. But then, since we also have a very robust system, it will be functioning for 50 to 100 years, like hydropower plants, which means that this will be a very low cost of this type of equipment. So even though the investments are significant, this will be there for a long time and support our grids. So I think that is, without discouraging you who work in the other type of technologies, because they will also be needed. But there's a number of key elements that is very valuable for the grid from our technology. And what because you also asked earlier, short-term, long-term, and so on, we will need many types of durations. And that's one of the advantages also with our technology, that we can actually store a lot of energy in this kind of systems, because we will talk about storing water reservoirs of maybe 1 million cubic meters and so on. So it's also very flexible from a design point of view, and the designs are fairly straightforward if you have been into hydropower. So there's the Swiss Army knife is really there.
Sounds excellent. Then Carlos, now you get the chance to restore the faith in batteries.
Yes, so batteries have something that we could call like a flexibility in design. So if we compare batteries, for example, with compressed air energy storage, we can see that in those kind of technologies we require more investment or bigger size in equipment. In this case, batteries can be more compact and more lightweight. Attached with that, we can say that batteries speak in the best language for the industry, that is cost. So they have a low rate of maintenance, a low cost of processing maintenance, and at the same time, between batteries, they have better advantages. For example, we see cylindrical batteries can be more flexible in automation process that require less energy, or can be more likable in pressure deformation. So we see all these advantages that we can talk in money language in this case. At the same time, we have a low self-discharge rate in these kind of technologies that will give a better life cycle in this case for long term.
Okay, so
may I add?
Of course.
Very high efficiency if you compare to fuel cells, etc. The
really
efficiency is
density.
really killing compared to. You are more long term, but we are more efficient.
That's true. That's true.
Good complementary.
I was almost getting into round trip efficiency there, but I left that a little bit here. So, but Anouk, you mentioned actually thermal storage.
Yes,
I mean, it's looking at it from a holistic perspective. About 50% of the energy is being used for heating. So, I mean, it's pretty hard to handle that with batteries, I think. So we need to find some other technologies here. So.
Yes, so the really important thing is to what energy we have available. For instance, if we have electrical energy, do we store it as electrical energy? That's very useful if we want to use electrical energy. But then if we have electrical energy and we are mainly going to use it as thermal energy, which for instance in the Nordic countries is very typical for the winter, then thermal energy storages might be much cheaper, but then the outcome is easily thermal. So then if we want to go back from thermal to electrical, then the efficiency is lost there. So this is kind of like, what's the need? What is the need that we have? What's the energy we have available? What is the need that we actually need? And then we know what is the reasonable way to store it. So therefore, they are not kind of competing, but they are kind of different options. And then this efficiency is a very important factor. It's very good that you brought it up, because we should always do things as efficiently as possible. But then the question is that for long term, this might not be a possibility. So it might not be a possibility to invest that kind of battery storage. So then we have to always think about what will be the most efficient solution. Direct electrification is the most efficient one, but then there are other things and other type of needs, and then you'll have to think about what would be then the next option. But I think efficiency is very important because we know that we're going to need a lot of renewable energy. So we're not want to lose the energy in low efficiency. So we shouldn't aim for systems that have low efficiency if we have other options that are higher at efficiency. But we have very large different amount of needs. And this thermal component is very important because in these countries, we are utilizing a lot of electricity to actually heat. And then at that time, storing heat is very is lower cost, so it might make more sense. And also for seasonal storing, for long-term storage, heat storages are somewhat easier to do.
Yeah, and I think actually when it comes to heat storage, long-term heat storage, you're also unlocking another part of the renewables, which is solar heating, which is a fairly low-tech solution, which has a potential to be quite inexpensive, actually. And it actually works also in the Nordic countries, but you need your long-term seasonal storage to handle that.
Yes, and when we don't always think about it, but here in the Nordics, we do have a lot of solar energy during the summer. So then we just require a very good solution to store that energy for our winter when we are actually needing the heat.
I heard some students laughing there when you said this. It's actually true. There's lots of sun here. Sebastian,
yeah.
I think you have some points on hydrogen as well.
No, so okay, we don't do storage, we don't do batteries and so on. So we are following a little bit, and we are actually proactive on this market as well. But clearly, the hydrogen is the highest, as we see, the highest power density per kilogram. So this is 120 megajoule power density per kilogram versus lithium ion, which has roughly 1 or 2. So you have, of course, you have to master the hydrogen, right? This is the key challenge. But it's clearly a very powerful energy sources. And you could say in the renewable, we see a lot of actually developments where renewable developers want to also get the opportunity to integrate an electrolyzer. So this is now coming, right? And then producing their own hydrogen. So this is actually something coming a lot in the Danish side of Scandinavia, with huge mega projects on the way. So this is, I would say, my take on that one. And then on the Swedish side, I think on the Swedish industry, we still have a lot of fossil processes, right? So there's still a lot of industrial processes relying on fossil fuels. And here you have, in Sweden, huge projects coming to transform this using hydrogen. So on the heavy industry, talking about green steel, for example, or even in Norway with the green ammoniac project. So there are still a lot of opportunities for green hydrogen to actually decarbonize big chunk of our society on the heavy industry, as I see it.
And that's an extremely interesting aspect of things, because if you look at, as you brought up, the Swedish situation now, where you have a amazing boom of new industrial establishments in the north part of Sweden, where you are looking for cheap and stable electricity from mainly wind power, actually, that's going into making hydrogen, not for storing, but for using directly in steel processes, for example, and fertilizer processes. And interesting enough, I mean, these are huge industries that are positioned in a grid that needs to be able to handle that. If you look at the wind parks, they are enormous. They're somewhere around 3 gigawatts installed right now in single place, serving these industrial facilities. But there's also an opportunity for storage actually in these industries, which means that you can overproduce, not perhaps hydrogen, but you can overproduce the intermediate when it comes to steel making, for example, and saving that for some time, and in a later stage actually manufacturing the steel from it. So there are a number of opportunities that's coming up, which is sort of in between flexibility and storage in this way. So, Christina, you have been sitting there for a while now. Do you have any comments here when we're talking about alternative technologies here again?
No, I think what you said, hydrogen will be extremely important for industry, and you can use surplus electricity that you generate to really also produce hydrogen. And I hope the electrolyzers will have a higher efficiency with time, which I do think they will, because I'm an optimistic technology nerd, so I believe in science and technology. But the question is how feasible the fuel cells will be, because that's a kind of battery. And I do think the fuel cells will have a really great importance for heavy-duty vehicles, trains, larger vessels for the marine sector and so on. So it's really true that we need to think about this technology with a very, very careful eye, and that I think you will be the experts on. That's why your educations are so important, that you can actually help say, we need this for that, and that for that, because you have to think of these and these and these parameters. It's fun when it's difficult, it's fun when it's complex, and that's why you are at the level you are, I think.
Absolutely. Before I jump into the next topic, is there any questions from the audience? I suspect it is. That's a very... Do we have a mic that we can... I see a hand down there in the middle somewhere. Yes.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. My question is to Mr. Thompson. When you said the mine storage works for both long-term and short-term, both long-term and short-term needs by providing additional energy to the grid, my question is how good is it? How does the seasons affect on it, like the winters? Because water is the main source of a resource that you'll be using.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and it comes back to what we were talking about, to finding the right application for different type of technologies. For us, when you use mine storage, I think the ideal application is to go for daily variations or for minutes and seconds. For annual variations, I think there are probably other ways to solve it, like if you talk about the thermal solutions. But to stabilize the electricity grid, I think that's where we come into its best, and also to handle the mismatch between production and consumption during one day, like a 24-hour. You have the sun in the daytime, but you have no sun in the night, and you have industries going around the clock and so on. So I think, because what we're looking at is also, it's like when you have the expression storage is quite common if you go to the grocery store. They have a storage with milk and bread and so on. And they want to have a turnover of the storage, because if they have the bread for 1 year and don't sell more than a few packages of breads per year, it's not going to be a profitable business. From an energy system and a national company or a national governmentally owned entity, it's a different story. But for us, being a private company, bringing an investor into the projects, we have to have a turnover like the grocery store. But that fits well with the technology, because we like to exchange the energy back and forth into the grid. It doesn't really, deteriorate the equipment and so on, like in some other cases where you actually want to avoid the energy exchange, because that actually reduces lifetime. For us, it's not the problem with lifetime, because water is water. So frequency regulation, like on a second basis, like you have in all countries. When there's hydropower, that's typically the hydropower purpose, or one of the purposes. In other countries, you do it by fossil-based large power plants and so on. And then the daily variation, I think those will be the two main when you talk about the timing. Good question.
Mm-hmm. Any more? Yeah, we have one more here.
Hello, yes. I would like to ask, since there is a competition, not really a competition, between making money and saving the planet. I would like to ask to everyone, what do you think the projects that we hear as students nowadays are probably the projects that are affordable or that investors are interested in because they can get some money out of it. But how do you make something that maybe is not so interesting for the investors, interesting for them, so that you can get some financing or make it really happen to save the planet? Because I think we're all worried about this. So how is this competition fight between really wanting to save the planet, but also at the same time making it interesting for investors?
I guess you're asking me, and I'm happy to answer
Can
that
I
question.
just, before you answer, because excellent transition to the next subject, because that was exactly what maybe you want to come here and sit. No, but let me just expand a little bit before you answer,
sure.
because I mean this is very interesting, and we actually see some of the big projects going on in other parts of the world. And Sebastian, you referred to the plants in the US, for example, where there's large plants when it comes to installing on grid side, specifically batteries, though. But in many parts of the world, we don't see any big investments when it comes to storage. And this is sort of what I think your question was about. Why is it not attractive? Is this because of the market design, or is it because the technology is not there, or do we need a further price reduction? So this is definitely something that's of interest here. So Sebastian, please, and then I would like to hear Carlos point on that one.
Yeah, so in US there is actually a lot of investment plans, and there's a lot of actually fundings as well from different states. You take California state, for example, with a huge investment plans and subsidies for private business who want to actually put a microgrid with solar panel and start to produce 1 megawatt by themselves. So this is actually something that is actually happening today. Maybe not so much in Europe, because for the moment for the moment we have been a bit not having any so much resiliency issues, I would say. So, but this I think will come. I mean, the more we're going to do industrialization of huge projects where we will have to have electrification of gigawatts of green steel and so on, the more you will see a bottlenecks in the grid in Europe. So at one point we need to really have a strong plan, I think, in the European Union on that. So you are working on that. So that's really good. Then on the private things, something Schneider is doing is actually Schneider has also, you could say, an investment, kind of investment fund, so you can actually do what we call energy as a service, right? So here you can have, okay, maybe you don't have the funds now to build this microgrid and these solar parks on your roof and so on. So then you can actually get into what we call Alpha Structure, which is our daughter company, who is actually helping the building owners or helping the industrial sites to actually invest in a kind of a leasing contract or an energy as a service contract, and then you actually have a return on investment, and we're promising, you could say, reduction of your bills. We're producing energy savings, right? And this is by this model that we believe we can accelerate also the use of microgrids, right? So this is now really coming in Europe as well.
Is this a business you see growing in?
Yeah, we have a lot of requests. We have done already a couple of microgrids in Finland. Finland has a bit, you could say, more maybe fundings, I would say, from the government on this. So, but we're also coming with this asset as a service or energy as a service concept as well. So US is very big for us on that, but we are also coming on that. So this can accelerate really the business, and we, by energy saving, by making energy savings, we both help the sustainability goal of the company, and we also actually make it as a saving in money, or in dollars or in euro. So this is one way to build the ecosystem so it becomes more a business, you could say.
Okay. So, Carlos, I know that you have a whole division at Northvolt that are looking at ESS, stationary storage, and are you doing good business on that?
Yes, we are working hard on that side.
Working hard, that's one thing, but you're doing good business.
Yes, I think the key, not just from the Northvolt perspective, but also what I have learned being in InnoEnergy is, of course, we know that the common language is money, but it's how to make it easier. That is the key. of how to attract more incentives or more research opportunities in this new field. We need to accept that we are leading a revolution right now, a transition, and the only way that we adopt a culture of storage. So for example, something that Norfolk do is try to exemplify how many technologies can be for different applications or have been different cultural environments. So for example, in the Nordic, in Skellefteå, or in Västerås, Stockholm, Poland, etc. So it's how to show the people that is a good way, an easy way, and not just center like, okay, it's a production of batteries or production of systems, etc., but how to make everything as a hybrid communication, a hybrid system. So one of the main keys is like incentives for government to get a little bit more of support, like we have in PV for purchasing, and more research and development that we can say this is easier. We can use the natural resources that we have in different countries, and we just can like centralize everything in a European perspective or American perspective, or depending in this case.
Okay, thank you.
May I answer that question in
Absolutely,
another way?
yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because I think you have to have patience if you have an idea that you don't get the investors really interested in, and start to build your case, and that can take some years. I mean, the lithium-ion battery was invented in the early 70s. It was produced first 1990. You had real production coming up for mobile phones in the 2005 something. Europe said nothing. Oh, it's not interesting. It's not interesting. It was difficult to even get research funding. And then suddenly it said boom, and we have this picture we have now, and lots of people coming in wanting to be part of this. And having been very long-term in this, this research side of this, I've seen all the steps. And now it's also possible for my former PhD students or postdocs to make spin-off companies. We have one called Altris, supported by InnoEnergy, doing sodium-ion batteries, also linked somehow to Norfolk. So this story is interesting. And there was a very interesting summer speech on the radio this summer by the founder of Spotify, talking about this long-term vision you have to have and how you actively have to work on the ideas. So don't give in too early.
And I'm really looking forward to have a chance to comment on this. Because it's really my
no, you can't do that. Go ahead.
This is such a good question, and I've been working like on Schneider and Northvolt. I spent too many years at ABB. So I don't going to mention the number here, but we did 20 years ago in the US, actually in Alaska. We built at that time the largest battery energy storage system, 40 megawatts for 15 minutes. I mean, we talk about investors. In that case, I thought I saw the full business, and we talk about value chain. But in reality, I mean, ABB or Schneider Northvolt, you have to excuse me, but selling things and being happy that there's a customer buying it. But actually, that customer has to get the funding from somewhere. And that's the investor I think you're asking for. And the reason why I'm so eager to respond, because I came back from London this night and met with investors. And not to be blunt and not to kind of be disillusional, but investors are only looking at money in the end. They are only looking at money. But having that said, actually, green sustainability, thinking about that, investors are now also taking a value in that. So that is the change. We have the taxonomy legislation in Europe. Things are actually putting a value on sustainability, and that's the big difference that's happening now. That's why we started this company now, because now is the right time. We don't have the time to wait like academia, because startups, Spotify and all of them, need money from investors who trust you and your business idea. If you don't make money as a company, they need to put in more money. But as soon as possible, you need to start generate money from your own business. Otherwise, you are depending on investors. So I don't know if I'm answering exactly, but I think it's the keys for us, all of us, citizens on the world, to say that the climate has a value. And we should only put our money whatever we invest, small pocket money in the bank or whatever we do as normal citizens, put those money into green funds, put those money where it makes a difference to the climate, then we all will make this change happen. But in reality, the investor only look at money.
Can I just expand on that a little bit and try to an open question here? Because the investor are looking at money, but they're looking at a company like yours that are going to create a revenue stream.
Yeah.
And that means that you need to have some sort of a market or market incentive, or perhaps it's subsidies, but perhaps that's probably not the way to go. But what is necessary when it comes to market change in the market in order to actually get storage up and as a good profitable business, whatever storage it is?
There, a couple of the functions the Swiss Army knife I'm talking about can accommodate. They are paid from the energy market or from the TSO, the grid owners, some of them, and it varies from country to country. That's a very important part of our business, is to understand how do we get paid. It's like you say, Johan, there. And some of them are not quantified and cannot be paid for in all the countries yet. So, but just moving into this again, in Sweden, in the western part of Sweden, you cannot add new wind power because the grid is not able to accommodate that. 2 years ago, a regional grid company said, sorry, we cannot connect more wind. So we talk about being an enabler. We're not going to change the world, but we can be an enabler by having significant grid scale storage. Because the regional grid company has to go to the national TSO, transmission system operator. They say that we will invest 100 billion Swedish crowns the next 10 years. So hopefully there will be stronger grid in your part of Sweden during this time period. 100 billion Swedish crowns, it's like 10 billion euro. And if we could get like 1 or 2, maybe 3% of that, we could definitely allow several hundreds of megawatts of wind power to be connected. But today, there's not a policy for making that happen. So we see that society, from a financial point of view, from society or economical perspective, grid scale storage makes sense. But the legislation is not there in all countries for this. So that's an important part. That's also what the investors look at. Okay, can you make, the revenue streams that you can prove today, but also how can policies change so that actually you can make revenues in the future? And that means that actually they are looking at money, but if we're able together to make policy changes, that we can add the wind power faster than...
Okay, thank you. I've been actually asked to cut this short a little bit, 5 minutes, but I would like to finalize this session then by going through all the panel, and you can give us some last words on this, and you can burn for hydrogen or whatever, but please, and make sure that all of these people in here, they are going to work within storage in the future.
Johan, there's a question, I don't know.
There is a couple of questions, actually.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Well, Laura, then
okay.
let me get my 5 minutes back.
Oh, Jesus,
then.
okay.
Laura, will I get the 5 minutes back then?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So we have one question
let's
here.
Let's go for some questions. This is fun.
Okay, let's try to keep it quick, okay? If I try to really go for all the questions, we keep it quick. Okay.
I will be very quick. Okay, I'm a big fan of hydrogen. The sense like I worked with some company before, and the sense is like, yes, hydrogen is very promising, but the sense is the market. Like there are a lot of companies generate hydrogen right now, but the sense where you can use hydrogen, like because like until now like there are less car use hydrogen, and what you can do is like use hydrogen to like replace like you can use the hydrogen for the steel making, and or like make it from like make like ammonia or methanol, right? But what else? Like if you can just directly use hydrogen, where you can use it? Where is the market? That's all.
Okay.
Quick question, quick answer.
Okay, so there's a lot of applications in which we can use hydrogen, but we should also try to electrify what we can. So we cannot just produce hydrogen and then put in the fuel cell and produce electricity, because right now it's not that efficient. So what's the real option on how to spread and increase the hydrogen projects? try to create that link with industry, with the purpose, like connect the whole value chain. So you already mentioned the green steel. So there's a lot of space to improve the method to reduce iron ore, in which we can have a lot of efficiency. We can also create the value, the business model. That's also to answer your question, because when the idea is too expensive, when the project is not that profitable, you have to find the connections, you have to find the correct business model at the premium value to make it possible, and also the regulation from any country or the European Union. We need that to proceed, because right now we don't have the efficiency. We are going to reach that efficiency in 8-10 years, so then it's going to be very easy to have hydrogen projects. But right now, we have to be very creative and bring to the table the best business model. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just one last thing. Here, the name of this event is Connect. So if you have ideas, there's a lot of colleagues who also wants to save the planet, who wants to tackle the climate change. So try to network as much as you can, because sometimes people doesn't look like only the money, but they also want to save, to contribute, and be sustainable. So connect with that people, and you're going to receive a lot of funds and support.
Thank you, very interesting answer. I'm also an hydrogen enthusiast myself. I will be really quick. This is mainly from Branden, but anyone else can answer, so he's not the only one speaking. What do you think are the main key components in hydrogen technologies talking about? You already mentioned efficiency, the fuel cells, electrolyzers, the business model, but what are the main key components so hydrogen makes it in time for this energy transition? Because we see very ambitious targets for the carbonization here in Europe. So what are the main key components to make it in time?
Okay, I think the investment, we have the investment. We have a lot of commitment, deals and agreements between companies and energy suppliers that, yes, we're going to develop this project, we're going to develop this, but we don't see the tangible project. So what is missing right now is, again, the business model, and also every day you're going to hear like a new advance in the area of the electrolyzer. You're going to see how the SOIC electrolyzer technology is getting more and more efficiency. It's going to reduce the cost. So it's more like a matter of time. Right now, we have everything. We just need the time. The learning curve for hydrogen is increasing a lot. It's going very fast. So right now, there's not like a specific answer. We need to be proactive, everyone. We as students, companies, investors, regulators, everyone. So there's a lot of key components that we could work in: efficiency, size of electrolyzer, electrochemistry, optimization with the energy management system. So there's space for every kind of improvement. So there's not like a specific point, but everyone is working in every aspect.
May I add what I think?
Please.
I think he's right, but I think this that we are now putting batteries into vehicles, that we're making all electric vehicles, that has been a long resistance to that from the automotive industry, and now they have transformed. I think that will pave the way for the fuel cell cars as well. It's the next step. Because at some point you will discuss this with all the amounts of batteries you will need, and then the chance for the fuel cell and that technology to enter more strongly into that business will come up. I think the Volvo Group, AB Volvo, their trucks 2050 will be 50% will be battery powered and 50% will be fuel cell powered. But the beauty is that you will always need a battery to the fuel cells, but just a smaller one. So I think you have to endure and see that it's coming. I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have one more.
We have a lot more.
Yeah, but I think we take one more.
Okay, I would say because Kenneth also asked
he's the boss,
time ago,
so
and he is the boss,
yeah,
exactly. So I would say Lightning, super fast.
Oh, goodness, okay. No, actually, this is more of a general question because I still feel that there's a lot of issues and pushbacks from government, politicians, whoever, but there's also pushback from local people. I want to know, how is it that we can be more like, we're engineers, we love to make technology, but we also need to be aware that we need to work with the people because otherwise we're not going to get the land for PV and so on. So are there initiatives, or are there things being worked on where we can do things ethically as well?
Someone want to pick up on that one? It's very interesting.
If I may take my take on it, and I think this is so good that we're talking, I mean, engineering 25, 30 years ago wouldn't have asked that question, but today it's so relevant. And that's one of the really strong values for us, because if we're going to utilize mines, abandoned mines, and imagine mining industries and mining areas when the mines are closed, basically that's a disaster for the community. So for us, it's really the opposite. We're going to be welcomed, and we have a lot of municipalities actually calling us and asking, would you like to use our mines? Also mining companies see that, and talk about the investors, they see that a mine in the beginning is an asset, then you extract the ore, it becomes a liability. But if you can convert it to a mine store, it becomes an asset again. So that's another way of actually creating value, even though, so that the investors can appreciate it. So from our point of view, it goes hand in hand with exactly the problem that you mentioned. We're actually able to get support from local communities. And I think that's the way we're going to make it, you know, the classic "not in my backyard" discussion. But it has to be in my backyard. I want it to be in my backyard. I want to be one of the people in the world that actually helps to combat the climate challenge.
Okay.
I think with your attitude, it's going to happen. Guys like me, it's more difficult to convince.
Okay, Sebastian, do you have any comment on that? I guess you're involved, your company at least, involved in lots of these projects.
Yeah, no, so maybe one thing, the technology is evolving a lot, right, in every direction. So staying curious, I mean, we have to be learning, we're learning new technologies every day, so this is how we keep up to date. Yeah, so this is my only, I would say, final advice. Stay curious.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Kenneth, okay.
Yes,
okay.
I cannot.
Sure, you're the boss.
I like to bring it back to a little bit very simple. I mean, we've heard about fuel cells, batteries, hydro, and so on. We all understand that storage is needed for a very intuitive reason. When the sun doesn't shine, you need to store, and then, I mean, when it's dark, you unload it. Very simplified. But I mean, coming back to the value chain, I mean, we know in the electricity system, you have producers, you have the transmission, you have consumers, and so on. Who owns the storage? Is that the storage operator? Or where is in the value chain is this actor? Maybe this is a question for you, Thomas, because that's you are doing mine and storage, but who is your supplier? Where do you buy your energy to charge your mine, and who are you selling it back to? Where in the value chain are you?
Yeah, first of all, we want to be an operator, so we want to own this. And that's coming back to that we're not selling equipment to someone, we're actually utilizing equipment from Voith Hydro, who is the main player in hydropower. So we will be an operator. Together with the investors, we will own this plant. And then, of course, we'll work on the energy market. So there is a market for buying and selling electricity, and also on the markets for ancillary services, balancing services. So I don't know if that answers your question, but so we will work in the markets that exist today.
Would you say that is a new industry, in storage operator?
Yes, large-scale storage. That's definitely something new, and that's the space we believe that is so valuable for us to be first out. Yes.
Okay, Laura, now I used up 5 minutes overtime here. Sorry about that. So, but let's just quickly run through the panel here. And I think, Sebastian, you have already given good advice here too. So yeah. Let's start with Branden over here. So.
I just want to leave like a topic on the table. It's like decentralization. What if we have, for example, a decentralized or an off-grid energy plant that supports a process? Could be any kind of process, fertilizers, green industry, whatever. The owner of this energy storage or renewable energy plant is the one who assumes the risk, but this off-grid plant doesn't have the support from the European regulation. So what's the advantage of this? If we have this off-grid thing, we don't need to connect and saturate the grid. So basically, what I want to invite you is to study more about decentralization, because I think it's going to play a big role in the energy market. Decentralization connected with applications in industry.
Thank you. Christina?
I think you should really look into the role of batteries in the energy system and learn as much as you can about the system aspects, but also learn a little bit more about what is really the qualifications of the chemistries in the batteries. If you have this interface coupling, which nuclear here is one of the few having in the Scandinavian countries, you will really be in the business in the future. You will understand more than most people. So you're welcome to get even better than you are. You have your second year to improve.
Very good. Anuka?
I'll continue with that. So if you have a good idea how to help on the energy transition, how to help us in this challenge of decarbonization of energy, please maybe use your master's thesis on it. Yeah. So we will help you with that. You have time to test. Then you can test if it's already good enough for investors. If that's not yet the case, which might be because some of these technologies are in the early stage, we have academic life. So we have academic funding. There's a welcome to do a PhD on this thing. This is where you have 4 years time to develop it more ready. Maybe it's at that time technology readiness level is enough for investors to do. So don't give up your dream or your idea. Come with us and we will kind of help you to find the way to develop it further.
And in Scandinavia, we are really good at working with academia and industry together.
Now you're cheating. You have
Thomas, very short. I'll be very short, and I'm not going to give you more advice. I said I'm going for eliminating the question mark behind storage. So who share my insight that storage is needed? Yeah. Thank you.
Sebastian, you want to underline what we...
Yeah,
sure.
No, so it's a lot, I think, digitization. I mean, we didn't talk about digitization, but I mean, microgrid, storage, this is a lot about digitization. So there's a lot of softwares, and these are probably the key to a lot of the questions on financing, on how you earn revenues, how you bring flexibility to the grid. So this is probably one of the key points we didn't touch today.
Excellent point. That's for the next roundtable.
Yes.
Carlos?
Yeah, I want to agree with Sebastian, like digitalization, everything regarding like data mining or deep learning. I think that we are in the age or like the step of the transition, the storage revolution, that we can like give more value when we validate or we make more complex systems based on data. So I will advise you like to go more in this detail and also in the hybrid system, hybrid technologies, because we are just adopting this model and there is way more space for research and more way to get incentives from government or any other countries.
Okay, thank you very much, panel.
Sounded like you and I have calibrated before.
We have to leave the floor to Laura. She's going to kill me here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.